Hello, welcome to this Computer Weekly video. I'm Bryan Glick, I'm the Editor-in-Chief of Computer Weekly. And in this video, we're talking around some of the issues that are involved in transforming the modern digital workplace. Now this is one in a series of 4 videos that we've produced looking at various different aspects of the modern workplace. And in this particular video, we're talking about your workspace. We're talking about the working environment, the physical and, in some respects, the culture of the working environment that you're in. And how do you make that somewhere that people want to work and where people can be as productive as they can be? To help me do that, I'm joined by a couple of experts in the subject. John Chambers is UK Sales Director for IT and Communication Services at Ricoh, and Helen Liaudin is an Account Director at Ricoh. Both of you, welcome. Thanks very much for coming on and talking to us here. So we're talking about the workspace, the physical environment. We all read stories of table tennis tables in Silicon Valley type places these days. There's a lot of discussion about what makes a modern workspace. From a business perspective, what are the key drivers and the key considerations that you have to have in building a modern workspace like that?
I think with regards to Bryan, the workspace itself, it has evolved into not just being the office, but it's about any space that the employees will work. So there's 2 sides to this really. One is around the creation and environment to support probably the attraction and retention of the best talent, which is obviously one of the key drivers. And then secondly, around cost, because obviously property after probably people is one of the biggest costs that a business will have. So it's a case of, looking at that workspace and effectively planning how you're going to deliver that to support the objectives and goals of the business. So 2 real key things there that businesses probably need to consider.
Now, in creating the sort of workspace that you're describing there, clearly there are issues for facilities and building management people there, but there's also very much some IT issues underpinning that. For an audience watching this of mostly people who work in IT and for IT managers, what are the challenges that creating that sort of workspace presents for them?
I think the challenge is, some of it is around the looking at the structure of the business itself, because if you're looking at workspace, you really need to be pulling together different departments within your organisation to really come together with a common sort of goal and objective. And really that probably needs to be facilities plus IT. So bringing those together to look at workspace, look at effectively how you can redesign or manage what you have, and then enable that through technology. If you want to look at agile or remote working, then you're going to need to look at how you can underpin your goals through technology itself. And that again is looking at both the technology itself, but also the processes that support that.
Helen, you must have been into a lot of some of these workspaces, both the wacky and the conventional along the way, I'm sure. John talked about a lot of the challenges that the business and people and technology people have in developing, designing, putting together some of these sort of modern workspaces. In your experience, how are organisations going about tackling those challenges?
Yeah, Bryan, I think that most businesses, as John has mentioned, is that people and the property are probably the most expensive things that they have, obviously. So I think it is understanding again how the users use the space, but also the property itself, as a user goes through the building, how it's utilised, where they go, which areas they use the most. It's gathering that data to understand how the workspace is being used.
Yeah, I think so, that data and discovery and initial research is so critical to this, isn't it? John, we know some of the organisations that you've worked with have been through that sort of process. Probably perhaps more advanced than some. Yeah. For those some sort of earlier adopters, so to speak, what are they seeing as some of the real measurable benefits that they're getting? The things that you could pick out and show to somebody else and say, these are the things that are going to make your business case work.
And I think, from a technology perspective, ROI is always spoken about, and sometimes a difficult thing to measure and really deliver when you're deploying new technology. I think one of the things that we've found, so we've done this ourselves within Ricoh, which is a good thing that we're actually things that we're promoting to our customers. We've actually taken that step and done it ourselves. And I think some of the key things that we've found were we were able to redesign the office space, which actually helped to drive down our costs by over 50%, which is a absolute hard saving. But that wasn't just cost for cost's sake. So yeah, every organisation wants to reduce their cost base, but not at the expense of the engagement or experience of their employees. But what we were able to do was create spaces that actually drove employee engagement up. So employee engagement went up by over 20%, although we've reduced our cost by over 50%.
Now, your own workplace is obviously a really good example, but, to a certain extent, people might say, well, we'd expect you to be good at this.
Yeah.
Can you perhaps bring some of this to life by perhaps giving us an example of one of your customers, an organisation that you've worked with? What were the challenges that they had? What did they achieve at the end of it?
And I think, Bryan, we've worked with quite a lot of organisations that you expect from the likes of Frakin and IEMA and the CBI, who all had challenges around looking at what they wanted their workspace to be, both from a sort of people environment perspective, but also to really look at how they could enable their employees to be able to work more effectively. I think what you do find in the office with those sorts of organisations, one, it's the sort of look and feel of the space, but also then it's the ability to drive meetings and collaboration. I know most organisations do struggle with actually getting meeting spaces right to be able to connect remotely, to connect their customers, to connect their partners, and do that effectively. So I think there's a number of drivers for organisations to really create that environment that really helps to drive their organisation to be able to work smarter.
Okay, let's try and wrap this all up then. Consider that probably a lot of the people who are watching this particular video are really at the research stage. They're trying to understand what they need to do and set out in the early stages of a project. Helen, I'll come to you first with this one. If you could give one piece of advice about what you need to do to set out to create the ideal working environment for your staff, give one piece of advice to somebody who's setting out on that now, what would it be?
I think we've probably covered this quite a few times, but it is the discovery, it's understanding how the space is being used, but it's also the engagement with the users, that you understand how they're using and what space they need to use. So it's sort of combining the two, so it's the practical, but then also engaging the end user in sort of understanding how workspace is being used.
And John, what would you add to that? What would your one piece of advice be?
I think I'd absolutely agree with Helen around that data, whether that be analysis of how the workspace is being used. But I think the other thing is to not treat the workspace as just one thing. You're looking at the environment you're creating in the office, but you're also looking at how you can create that environment that may be collaborative but working remotely. So you've got to be able to pull those things together and enable them through both the space in the office, but also probably the technology and the processes to bring those people together to help drive collaboration, innovation and new ideas, which can really help your business.
Helen, Liaudin, John Chambers from Ricoh, thanks very much for sharing some of the experiences that you've had of working with organisations to develop a modern digital workspace to help improve some of their productivity. That's all we've got time for on this particular video. As I mentioned at the start, this is one of a series of 4 videos that we've produced looking at issues around process, technology, people, and in this particular one, workspace. Thanks for watching.